renal failure, you catch it in the hospital. You don't catch it in the neighborhood. There are some places in the world where you can catch it in the neighborhood. If you're in a place where, like, life-threatening diarrhea is rampant, you can actually catch renal failure. But most of the time, you got to go to the hospital to catch it. And you go to the hospital with a disease, and invariably you're given the American solution to disease, antibiotics, which kill the kidney. So we see it develop in the setting of trying to heal people. We're actually taking them out. Let's go back to overeating. Again, we're not using obesity. The O word will not show up in my talk. Lamentably, I try to find slides to sort of feature this concept, and the literature uses the O word. So my apologies for that one. So we will go through what's happened to America in the last 20 years. And we're defining obesity trends among U.S. adults. This is in behavioral risk factor surveillance study. Obesity is defined as a BMI over 30. And at the bottom of the slide, you'll see the prevalence in various states. So let's go a little whirlwind tour through America. 86, it's on the rise. The Midwestern states seem to be bearing most of the brunt of this procedure. Progressive, inexorable rise. Now, you're still all feeling pretty good if you look way up in the Northwest. But don't bet too much on that one. Surrounded by your obese neighbors there. Oh, 98 was a bad year for superiority. It gets worse. It just keeps getting worse. Now, this slide was stolen from a cover of The Economist, and it says the evolution of man. Evolution is the wrong word, because evolution applies a give and take, adaptation, selecting out advantageous behaviors. This is not evolution. This is suicide. Is it suicide or is it murder? Let's go back to our list. And we identified risk factors as those things that we felt very strongly were killing the American kidney. The drug industry views them as market opportunities. They're going to sell us any number of pills to address risk factor reduction. Why don't we take on the cause of this? Why is it that nobody has taken on the food industry? Why do we settle for attacking the results of improvident behaviors? And there aren't good answers to that. Somebody did take it on once. Well, take it on is too strong a word. Somebody ran into the food industry. Somebody was steamrollered by the food industry. And that was George McGovern in 1977. He found himself the head of what at the time was an influential committee. It was the Senate Select Committee on Nutrition. And they were concerned about what was happening to America. They were looking at the trends we saw in that panorama of slide progressions. They were looking at a higher and higher incidence of heart attack, stroke, and kidney failure. They were looking at rising incidence of obesity. And they were looking at other nations of the world that didn't seem to have these problems. People from Japan who came to the United States would get sick. People who would migrate from France would get here and get sick. If you look at the French diet, it's terrible. It's full of grease and wine and all kinds of terrible things, but they don't seem to have our incidence of obesity, hypertension, heart attack, stroke, and kidney failure. And so they looked at all of this and came up with the following recommendation. Let me add that they also had data from the war, World War II, when the incidence of heart attacks and stroke dropped, and then the data after the war, when food became more plentiful, when all of these things went on the rise. So their recommendations were eat less meat and dairy products. And that was squashed immediately. The food industry went nuts and totally pressured the committee into rewording their findings. So what finally emerged was choose meats and poultry that will reduce saturated fat intake. So they've taken gluttony now and given it another word, saturated fats, and say take that as your target. Reduce fats. Eat more, but eat more of reduced saturated fats, which at time was felt to be the evil player. The current read on the Women's Health Initiative is that saturated fats didn't have anything to do with it. Basically, the advice to eat less never surfaced. We were told to eat more, but eat more of unsaturated products. My current boogeyman on the food industry's list is the high fructose corn syrup that's present in our diet pretty much mirrors those obesity prevalence slides we looked at. In 1970, high fructose corn syrup, the average American ate about 300 grams of that a day. The current intake is 35 kilograms. Why have we switched our eating habits to take in 100 times as much high fructose corn syrup? It's cheap and it's sweet. So who possibly would go to a cheap, sweet ingredient and put it in all of their foods? So the food industry. It is in every soft drink. It's in most of our fruit juices. It's the #1 added sweetener that the food industry, preparing stuff that tastes good and induces us to eat. Where do they get the high fructose corn syrup? They get it from corn. And corn is the end product of one of the major farm subsidies programs. We pay farmers to grow way more corn than we can eat, and we take the corn and we make high fructose corn syrup out of it. We use it as a tool for foreign policy. You laugh, but recently we threatened Mexico with removing them from the favored trading partner list because they were balking at buying more of the high fructose corn syrup. They wanted to use their own sugar. And the Mexicans actually drink more pop than we do. They're the #1 country in the world for soft drink consumption. But they were tired of buying, or being forced to buy, high fructose corn syrup from the United States government. They dug in, did not capitulate, and refused to buy any more of the stuff. So Mexican Coke now has cane sugar in it. And that's responsible for the elitist Cuba Libre aficionados saying, if you want to make the best Cuba Libre, get a can of Coke from Mexico, not from the United States. Well, we're taking in 34 kilograms of this stuff. What is it? If you take corn, you can very inexpensively produce high fructose corn syrup. It's a enzymatic isomerase. You'll create a mix from the sucrose that's in corn of glucose and fructose. The initial product was 43% fructose. The current one is 55% fructose. And fructose is way sweeter than glucose. So it's the ideal additive to foods. It's cheap, it tastes good. The problem is it's a poison. And how is it a poison? The brain doesn't recognize fructose. If you eat glucose, the brain recognizes that you're taking in stuff and it turns off appetite. It turns off hunger. It tells you you've had enough. If you're eating fructose, all you're getting is the fructose that then the body has to deal with. What happens to fructose when it goes to the liver? It's preferentially shunted into the manufacture of lipids, not into glycogen. So you cannot turn off your appetite, and you provide the liver with way too much substrate for making lipids, which adversely affect membrane remodeling, to the key of atherosclerosis. So this is the dilemma. We eat more and more of this stuff. The table for high fructose corn syrup consumption exactly matches the obesity graphs that we looked at. So there's hope. And what is that hope? That we could shift corn to fuel. That was quickly debunked as inefficient because it costs quite a bit to make biodiesel from high fructose corn syrup. But what they didn't factor in was it may be a little more expensive to make fuel from it, but what about the savings in health? We will save billions if we start eating right. Very hard to do. You've pretty much got to eat whole foods. You've got to go to the co-op. You've got to grow your own food. You have to buy locally. You have to do foreign markets. You have to quit doing fast foods. We consume 35% of our meals in fast food restaurants as a nation. That's ridiculous. If you go fast food, you're buying salt, you're buying fat, and you're buying dead kidneys. Thank you very much.